Hello again, everybody. This is Dan Clouser, and welcome back to the Journey My Mother's Son podcast. Today I'm joined with work-life balance coach Arlene Cohen Miller. Arlene, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
Absolutely. Looking forward to this conversation. But before we get started, just introduce yourself in your own words. Who is Arlene today?
Well, today, I guess I'm a mother and a grandmother, and I'm also a retired attorney. So I've practiced law in several interesting areas, including family law and commercial law. And while I was that a commercial law attorney the last 3 years, I got a diploma in coaching and mentoring and a diploma in transformational holistic counseling and became a certified meditation facilitator. I just felt like I could be a better service if I had those skills and abilities. I really wasn't planning on just being a work-life balance coach and a transformational mentor, but I just sort of got tired of the practice a lot. I did it a lot and just felt like this was what I was supposed to step into next. So I did started my own business, Jewel Consultancy. I focus on women with the work-life balance and harmony because when I opened my own law firm when I was 29, immediately found out I was pregnant. We were up in Cleveland, Ohio. All of our family was in Kentucky. I didn't have really a base of friends there. We hadn't been in Ohio that long. And I had to sort of grow my own tribe, with other mothers and with other people to raise my son and be a working mom as well. So I feel really empathetic and compassionate towards working women, especially those with children. And also a transformational mentor because coaching, you're walking alongside of someone and you're asking them in powerful questions and you know that they have the answers within them. Some people would rather be mentored, and that's where they can stand on the shoulders of my experience and what I've learned along the way. And so it's just a different process for the same thing.
Yeah, I love
So,
it. So just want
yeah.
to dig in a little deeper as far as, how someone who, was practicing law for all those years, you know, comes to the moment where you want to decide to be a work-life balance coach. It just seems like a different trajectory than what you what you were on, yeah, as an
Yeah,
attorney.
well, you went on a different trajectory too. You know about that. It's just like I was a when you're an attorney, there is no leaving it. You can go on a vacation here or there, but you have to work really hard before you go. You have to work when you come back. There's something a little bit more laid back about helping people as a coach. You can schedule, you can travel. It's a more leisurely life. I really brought my heart into both of them. I really enjoyed a lot of the aspects of practicing law and bringing a different kind of attorney, I hope, to the practice than maybe how we were trained, to be compassionate and caring and kind and stuff like that. So, I mean, I just knew I needed to be different, and it just all sort of came together. Well, this is why I got my coaching diploma. This is why I got my transformational, mentoring diploma. This is why I got certified as a meditation facilitator. It sort of all came together, and all the skills actually do work together, because one side of my brain is pretty organized and more mental, and the other side is more spiritual and feeling. So I don't know. I didn't have like a checklist and this was now time to just jump over there.
Right, right.
I don't know if you can relate to that, but it wasn't like a linear, like that
Yeah,
process.
no, can definitely relate to that. I mean, how was your work-life balance as an attorney before you got into, the practice that you're doing now?
Um, in the early years, it was really difficult because it's like I can remember holding my infant son like this, feeding him, and then having a whole case next to me that I had to go to trial with. And so a lot of the things, as he was growing up, I wanted to pick him up from school, make sure that he was okay. And so I just sort of I guess I was really, really grateful that I started my own business at 29 and I never went back to working for anyone else so that if he needed something, I could sort of rearrange my schedule, to do what I needed to do for him as his mom. And, if I needed to work at night or whatever, I would do that. But I mean, it's hard to be a mother full stop with a young kid. So I don't think the first 3 years of his life I got a whole lot of sleep, quite frankly. But I don't know, I survived and he's all grown up, so it must have been okay. You
Yeah.
just do what you do. You just figure out a way and you sort of like go along the way every step of the way. But there was lots of times I was pretty stressed out and anxious. And I wish I had had someone that was a work-life balance coach or could give me some words of wisdom that was a few steps ahead of me when I was there, because I was flying by the seat of my pants and I fell down a bunch and got picked myself back up a bunch. It wasn't like, just a skipping along, in the world kind of process.
Right. Right. And, I want to revisit another thing you'd said in your introduction there, talking about, you know, at a time where you changed trajectory. Like, obviously we did the same thing. I was, working in the youth, sports nonprofit world for 30 years and thought that I would, you know, be there till the day I died. And, definitely wasn't a linear move for me. And I think so many times in people's lives, they feel that they're too old to make a change or too old to make a shift. Um, but yet that's one of the things that you mentioned is that, it wasn't too old. Did you go through like an internal battle as to, it's too late in life for me to switch this, or was it easy for you to be like, hey, I'm
No,
going to make a move?
it wasn't necessarily easy, but I just, I never allowed myself to buy into you're too old to do something. I just refused to be sucked into that kind of mentality. And I was a little bit of a pioneer. I mean, when I was, young and I had my son was born when I was 30, I never gave up. Like I was a runner for a while. I did races and stuff like that. Now I do yoga and walking and hiking. So I've always well, I've had a bit of a sweet tooth, I have to admit that. But I've always done my best to take care of myself so that I could keep on moving forward. We can't help it if we get sick or things happen, and some of that happened along the way, as it does to all of us. But I just made a really conscious choice that I am not going to buy into that.
Yeah, I love that. And it's, similar to, I've mentioned it many times on the show, and I'm talking about my mom. I mean, she was in her mid 40s when she decided to shift and go back to school and become a, drug and alcohol addictions counselor. So, yeah, I think for me, when it came time for me to shift, um, I certainly used her example that, you know, again, you don't have to be a certain age. I think for whatever reason, society wants to put us in this box of, we should be doing the same thing, from the time we, graduate high school or college or trade school or wherever we set off on our career path, that should be the same path that we're on till the day we retire. And I just think that's, so misleading and, you
Yeah.
know, bad advice, really. I think
Yeah.
kids need to understand that at any point, kids, adults, I mean, you name it, we just need to understand at any point we feel the need to make that change, we can go ahead and do it. I mean, you want to add any to that?
Yeah. I mean, I really feel that we need to get out of our heads and feel into our hearts about where's to from here. And I really work with people like that because a lot of people like to make pros and con lists. I'm like, you're not going to be happy making a pro and con list because you can create a pro and con list any way you want. You need to
Yeah.
stop and breathe and really feel into your own heart's knowing. What are you feeling to do? And, is the human bit of ourselves going to be afraid? Yes, maybe. I can't say that I wasn't in moments. It was just like a really big leap. Like, for example, when I sold my solo practitioner law firm in Cleveland and moved with my son when he was 9 across country to be a partner in this small boutique law firm. And it's like, oh my God, what am I doing? It just felt like the right thing to do. Um, so I can't, but it's not necessarily that I was just skipping along and there wasn't any bumps in the road. But I really think we make a mistake, in not doing that. Because I can remember that when I graduated from college before I went to law school, I really had this heart's knowing that I was supposed to do what you're doing. Except I thought I'd like to go to Europe for a year and, be a waitress and travel around. And it was a different world then. And I was too afraid. And I always regret that. I'm like, my life would have been different. I could have put that on hold, the attorney thing, and really had a world experience. I was kind of burnt out from college and stuff like that. And I was a really good student. And I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for law school yet. It's a big time commitment. So yeah, that's one time in my life I didn't listen to my heart. And, I think my life might have been very different if I had done that. The amount of experience I would have had um, just all around to meet all different kinds of people in different countries, waitress, stay in those youth hostels and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's we took a trip to Alaska this past summer, and our 19-year-old grandson drove solo from Pennsylvania to Great Falls, Montana, and met us in Great Falls and followed us. And we had a little friend group that was, caravanning up through Alaska and Canada. And so he was kind of, you know, did a couple semesters at a community college, and was kind of just, trying to figure it out. And seeing how he changed on that trip, with those life experiences that he was able to, partake of and see different cultures, and meet different people and just, learn from different people who had their own, set of life experiences was, like we literally saw him, transform in front of our eyes. So
Yeah,
I do think that those lived experiences are worth more than any textbook or any classroom that you can stumble across. So, for anybody out there listening who's, debating or, weighing that out, like you said, you can kind of talk yourself out of anything that you want to. When you're coming up with that pro and con list, you can always make the cons a lot longer than the pros. And I think at some point you just got to kind of trust your heart and say, you know what, um, you know, even if it falls apart, like I'm going to try it and I'm going to,
yeah,
at least I did it. At least I gave it a shot. I think
yeah,
there's a lot to be said, um, in that for sure. So
yeah.
people that are, reaching out to you to engage your service and stuff. I mean, what part, like, is there something that kind of brings most of them to a brink where they're, you know, at a breaking point, try not being able to figure out their work-life balance, or are most of them ahead of the curve and just being, preventative to it gets to a point of hurt? I'm sure it's probably all over the board, but what's a lot of what you see?
Well, I feel like the world is really different than when I was growing up. You know, my mother's parents were kind of poor, and they both of them had to work. And my mother felt like she had made it, to be able to stay at home and take care of the kids. When we got older, she did some volunteer work and stuff like that. She was a social worker, so she worked on one of those helplines, when people called in and they were suicide risk or drinking too much or whatever the thing is. But yeah, a lot of women don't have that choice. There's no choice. And so I work with them because I have such an affinity with them, and they're working, they're enjoying their career, they want to make sure they make time for their kids. If they have a partner, there's that too. And a lot of the women that I work with are attorneys. I'm a member of the Colorado Women's Bar Association, which is a really, really cool group. There was no groups like that when I was a young attorney. They are involved in all sorts of extracurricular works for people. They give back. They have all sorts of support groups for each other, but it's still really hard. And so I think it's, a lot of the women that come to me, they want to have that balance. And I think part of it is just being flexible and adaptable, helping them to be flexible and adaptable and not thinking that there's just, I'm going to get there. I'm going to have that work-life balance and it's over. It's not. It's a constant, what's my priority today? What's my priority this week? How do I want to work this? And know that, we sort of just have to roll with life. And sometimes you just have to let things go and not be a perfectionist and not have to do everything, and get help, get
Right,
help.
right. I think a lot of times when people talk about and use the term work-life balance, um, they think of it as a scale that doesn't move, but I think it's truly something where it's a constant pendulum as to,
Yeah,
sometimes work's going to take up more of your time, but the whole point is that you got to make sure that pendulum swings back to
right.
give yourself time. So just talk a little bit about that, that I do think people think that it's just a straight linear, work and
Mhm.
life, it's boom, perfect 50-50, and your life is wonderful.
Life is straight and linear. I'd like to meet them. I guess what I really like to help people with as well is that a lot of women feel like, they need to give and give and give, and they don't fill up their own cup with love and with self-care, especially when their kids are young. And it's really important that we do that for ourselves. We can't give from an empty cup. And otherwise, you're just totally empty. You're totally worn out. And then you get frustrated and angry. Then you judge yourself for being like that. And then you go back to like maybe people pleasing and overgiving. And so it's really important that we take care of ourselves. How can we possibly give if we're just flat out? And, that can be as simple as, you get a 15-minute break and you take a hot bath or with some Epsom salt and some lavender oil, or you go for a walk around the block, or you do something that for you is nurturing. And it's important not to give that up just because you have young children. We need always to take care of ourselves. And I think a lot of people, not just women, let that go when they have so many responsibilities. But the truth is, we do things to waste time as well. How much time do people spend scrolling on social media and other things where we could actually be doing something that's really kind for ourselves?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is important. I think, you know, what there's times where you've got to be selfish in order to actually continue to give. Um, and I do think, um, it's probably more difficult for females to be concerned about filling their own cup first, than it is for males for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I'd like, to kind of hear your insight on why you think it's more difficult for women to, you know, be selfish every once in a while and, fill their
I
own cup before they start
don't even
giving.
think I don't even feel like it's selfish. I just feel like, if because if my cup is filled up with love, I'm a much more kind, caring, and compassionate person. I'm much more able to give and be the kind of person I want to be. So I think selfish is something that should be eliminated from that there, just if we're doing things to take care of ourselves. Because if we don't take care of ourselves, how are we going to be able to, give back when you're my age? It's not, we're not going to, we'll have all sorts of things, wrong with us or something. So I think it feels like it's passed on from generation to generation. I've told this story to people before, but I can remember being a teenager, and when my youngest brother wasn't born until I was 12. My other brother was born like 2 years after me. And my mother always bought us really nice clothes. We always, and my brother, gosh, from the time he was 13 to 17, he must have grown. I don't know. He went from like here on me to way, way up here. So, and I was looking at my mom in the kitchen one day, and I don't know how long she'd had all those clothes, those pants and top that she was wearing. And, I'm like, Mom, you have to go shopping. And she's kind of looking at me like, said, look, I don't need anything. Go shopping, get something nice for yourself. And it was like, kind of a revelation for her. I think she actually enjoyed it once. She did it a few times, but it wasn't within her realm of even thinking that that was okay. And I guess later when I used to went away to college and stuff, we came home. The first thing she always wanted to do with me was go shopping. It was always for sale, and that's what my mom was, and that was fine. But it was like it was something that we did to bond together. And so yeah, that was really cool. So I really hate to throw the word selfish in there when it comes to self care and self love. Why do we even do that? Because then we have a bigger cup to give back, and we're not going to feel all depleted and on the floor one day.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, and again, kind of going back to my mom, I remember distinctly when I was growing up after her and my dad got divorced and she was, now a single mom of, of a, 8, 9 year old boy. Both my brother and sister were already grown up because there's a big age disparity between us. Um, and she would take me to, Sears or J.C. Penney or department store to go shopping for back to school. And then she would, stop at the thrift shop for her stuff because, she was working 2, 3 jobs to make ends meet. I mean, we were, very poor at the time when after her and my dad had gotten divorced and, seeing the things that she did in order to keep food on our table, um, and, clothes on my back. And, even though now as an adult and I look back and think about, you know, how poor we really were, like during that time, like I don't ever, you know, remember going hungry or, wanting anything, and somehow she just figured it out. However, she got me to my little league practices and all that sort of stuff. And, granted, relied on other friends and family at times to get me somewhere because maybe she was working that second job or third job. And, but she made sure that I was taken care of in, one way, shape,
Yeah.
or form. So it
Yeah.
really is amazing looking back and seeing, what she had done during those years to be able to, to make things happen. Um, so why is it that you know, your practice does focus more on females than males?
Well, just my coaching practice,
Right.
my mentoring practice focus on both of them. It's not that I don't like men, I do. It's just that that's where my heart is. And so it's like, this is where I need to give back. And that's
Hmm.
why I'm a member of the Colorado Women's Bar Association. I'm like the only grandmother there. I know I'm older than all of them. I'm on a couple of committees. I just feel like, man, this is the place I need to be. This is how I can give back. I'm not as busy as they are when it comes to the practice of law. And I can actually enjoy being in the organization a little bit more than maybe some of them do. I don't know. It's just what I feel that I'm supposed to be doing. It's not that men don't have work-life balance and harmony issues. They do, but this is where I feel I can best give back.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned a couple different times, about that group and how when you were first getting into a practice, how a group like that would have been very beneficial to you, but it didn't exist. I mean, just talk about that a little bit about surrounding yourself, with a community, so to speak, of like-minded people, how that just helps us, in
It
general with our
does.
well-being.
I mean, I did have some nice things when I was growing up. One of my girlfriends, that I met in a really weird way. I was like in my office late at night. My ex-husband had our son with him and his new wife, and I was working at 7 o'clock or something, and the phone rang, and it was this woman, and she had been really abused, and her ex is no longer there, and she had two teenage kids and wanted to get a divorce, didn't have any money, and so she did like a work trade with me and became a really good friend. And later on, she created like a women's group. There's like four of us, so we met like once a month, and she also like I don't know, she just taught like self-help classes that I went to. I was a big sister for a while with a when I was in my early 30s for a young woman who was kind of traumatized as well. And so I would take her to those kind of things. So I did find a way when I was younger to have support groups. And I was like a member of a women's business organization, but we went for dinner once a month, and it was kind of a social thing, and we'd share a few things, but it really wasn't, we really didn't come together. It really wasn't, it didn't feel that supportive. It felt kind of really businessy, trying to get business instead of being supportive for each other. And this is what I tell people all the time, that we're so much better together. We're really so much better together. I'm a coach facilitator for this company called Ngomu, and my little niche is helping people boost their confidence and self-esteem with simple steps to transform their life. And I talk about this all the time. I do the show twice a month, and about how we're so much better together. It's so much easier to build up our confidence or self-esteem and let go of what's not working for us if we come together, hear each other's stories, support each other. It's a lot easier just to let things go and step forward. And I really feel that synergy. I really feel it. And I really encourage everyone I work with to find people, at least one, maybe even an accountability buddy. But it's nice to have a couple of them, with like, I call them like-minded souls, where we're coming together for a common purpose. And it just feels to be magical, it just feels to be amazing because there's so much separation and isolation kind of on this planet right now. And when you find that, you just find it feels like you're more coming home. I don't know how to describe it, but I feel it's so important.
Yeah, no, I agree with that as well. I mean, I think anytime you can find a community, um, it does build you up. I mean, even with us, living the nomad lifestyle, we have a community of friends that, are traveling like we are, that, you know, we never miss an opportunity to connect if we find out that we're going to be, in the same town at the same place or something like that. So, even though we're, not together on a regular basis, um, we kind of always know where each other is and never miss an opportunity. It's just connect. And I do think that's so important for everybody out there is to really surround themselves with people who, are willing to lift them up. And,
Yeah.
it's not competitive. It's uplifting. And again, not the like political type echo chambers that, oftentimes people find themselves in, but an uplifting community that
Yeah, I
is there
agree.
to help out for sure. So
Yeah, I totally, totally agree. And that's so cool that you have a group of friends that you can connect with here and there. I mean, I've watched a couple of videos with younger kids and who are like campers and they're, sort of nomadic lifestyle and how they have places where they all meet at certain times of the year. And it just, I've watched some videos about that. They're not long ones, but it's so inspiring. You can just really feel it, how great it is when they come together and how they support each other. And it's not a perfect, but it is really cool.
yeah, and even friends of ours who aren't nomads like we are. I mean, we just came from over in the Fort Lauderdale area, and while we were there, there's you know three different friends of ours that are in that area that we were able to get together with each of them on different occasions and just again share that time and share those moments and stuff like that, which is something we wouldn't be able to do if we were still living in our regular house back in Pennsylvania. So
Yeah,
we're definitely blessed to be able to you know find those people when we can as well.
yeah,
So yeah, I think that's just such an important lesson for people is to you know find your tribe, you know
yeah.
find your tribe.
That's what I was trying to do, and that's what I did to the best of my ability. And when I became pregnant and I had the law firm, I found my tribe, and we sort of all went our separate ways when I moved out to Colorado. But it was great. It was really great. And I guess I just wanted to share one other thing is it's you never know when you're going to get that um, experiences are like the coolest thing. My grandson is on the autism spectrum. He doesn't like presents. He doesn't want to get presents for his birthday or for Christmas. He likes to go places and do things. I mean, last year we went up to Glenwood Springs, which is a huge, amazing hot springs
We've been
in the
there.
mountains in Colorado. I love that place. And you can swim and he's all over the place and with his goggles and the food is wonderful and there's not a schedule. And my son and I just went up there. His wife wasn't that interested in it. And that was our Christmas present to each other and to him. And he just doesn't care about the other stuff. I mean, he'd like to do more things on his iPad playing games, but we really don't support him that well with that. So I just find it's really, you never know where you're going to get that inspiration from. And just because he's a little bit different, he really got it. Somewhere in his
Yeah,
heart, he really got it. It's interesting.
yeah, yeah. It is, and I know for us, some of our best experiences were ones that weren't necessarily planned. It was just deciding to get off the interstate for a little while and take a secondary road and come across something, state park or a lake that we weren't expecting to see or something like that, and really have a special magical moment. So I think, again, if people take be willing to take the time to get off course a little bit,
Yeah.
they'll find some huge benefits in those, off course moments that you'll find that they really probably were part of your course at the end.
Yeah. And I just find nature so healing. You get away from the cell phones, you get away from the internet, and it's just like it's hard to be upset when you're in nature. It
Really
just feels
is.
so uplifting. And yeah, it's like my favorite thing.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things, not maybe my favorite, but I just love it. I think that if people are feeling down and they're not feeling like they have that belonging or what they need in their life, get away from your computer. If it's cold out, bundle up, go out in nature. There's no matter where you live, there's beautiful places to go to that aren't that far away.
No, that's very true. You can generally find woods somewhere. Um, is that we're the same way. I mean, we love getting out on the trail and just enjoying that and you know being able to reconnect.
Yeah.
So Arlene, is there anything that you think we missed that you think feel would be important to listeners before we start to wrap things up?
I guess I just like to reiterate it in a different way that it's really important to be kind, patient, and tolerant with yourself, especially if you're maybe choosing to take a new path or you want to do things a little bit different in your life so that you're not as anxious and you're more like calm and peaceful and taking the time to really enjoy your life a little bit more. If the ship has been sailing this way, it's going to take a while to turn it around and go another way, or maybe some of the people in your life you just don't resonate with them anymore. You'd like to have more like-minded people around you to be more uplifting, like you're talking about. Really give yourself kindness, patience, and tolerance. And I don't know, you can even keep a journal about how you're going with it and acknowledge yourself for every small step you're taking along the way. Because none of us like snapped our fingers and sprinkled magic fairy dust and all of a sudden we were different. It's been like one small step forward at a time where we listen to our hearts. And so yeah, that's what I just wanted to share.
I think that's great advice because, like you said, in this day and age, we're literally, every piece of information in the world is at our fingertips. We think that, healing our soul and our spirituality and, getting back on the right path is something where you can snap your fingers as well and everything is right again. Like I said, if you've been going down the wrong path for quite some time, it's going to take a little bit to get back to where you need to go. So that's some great advice for sure. I
And
absolutely
maybe the
love that.
path was good for you back then, but you've grown and you're evolved and you're not the same person who was
Right.
okay back in your 20s or 30s. It's just like, I can't do that anymore. I need a change. And it's, you had those experiences and, a lot of our learning is like negative learning about what we don't want. Don't have to beat ourselves up, but we got the learning, we got the growth. It's something to acknowledge and celebrate with ourselves as we step forward. I just want to make sure it's an uplifting message, because we've all made mistakes and taken that little circuitous journey, in our lives. At least I have.
Yeah, and I think that's important as well, because a lot of times people, when I tell them what we set out to do and that sort of thing, a lot of times they think, oh, well, you must have been in a, corporate dead end job that you hated. And it's like, no, actually, I loved what I was doing prior to this. So again, I think to reiterate what you're saying, um, changing paths doesn't necessarily mean that you were on the wrong path. It means it's time for a different path. And that's the way it
Yeah.
was for me. I mean, I absolutely loved for 30 years of my life what I was doing. And you know, thought that that would be, my path the rest of my life. But then there was, the time came where it was time to change paths. And again, those 30 years weren't the wrong direction. They were the right direction. It was
No.
just time for a new
Yeah.
path. So I love it. So,
Yeah.
Arlene, if anybody wants to reach out to you, engage in, your services, find out more about what you're doing, how do they find you on the internet?
So my website is Jewel Consultancy, Jewel, like the gem, consultancy.com, or you can text me. Just mention this podcast, so I'll know where you found me, and it's 720-936-2634. Happy to chat or answer a question. And yeah, if you Google Arlene Cohen Miller, I think I'm the only one. There's a lot of Arlene Millers out there. I don't think there's any Arlene Cohen Miller. So yeah, you can read about me in the different, I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram and all those places. But yeah, I would love to hear from you.
Cool. Cool. So, Arlene, that brings us to our final question. As you know, the subtitle of the podcast is Many Little People in Many Little Places, which comes from the opening lyrics of a Michael Franti song, Gloria, which go, when many little people in many little places do many little things and the whole world changes. So it's one of the little things that Arlene does on a daily basis to make the world a little bit better place.
Yeah, I really it's what I've been talking about. I really like to just feel into, I'm not a perfect with it. How can I be kind, patient, and tolerant at this moment? How can I give back in this moment? I, I'm really grateful. I have this really wonderful community at my yoga school. There's all kind of, people of all different ages. And lots of times it's just that little moment, maybe in the women's locker room or right before class starts or something, and someone starts talking to me. And all I really need to do is listen. And I'm really so grateful that I learned as a coach how to listen. A lot of people don't know how to listen. It's like I'm not thinking about what I'm going to say when I'm talking to you. I'm actually right there with you. And I think that's one of the main gifts I give back is just to hold that space and really so the person feels listened and heard and understood. I think there's not many places you can get that in the world where people have that skill and they're willing to give back in that way.
Love that. That's a great answer. I think it's so important to be able to be present. A lot of times you're talking to people and you can tell they're thinking about the next thing that they're going to say as opposed to actually listening to what you're saying. So being present like that is an incredible skill. So I love that. For folks out there listening, be sure to check out my other podcasts and blogs at journeymymotherson.com. While there, check out our Pay It Forward program where you can buy a copy of one of my books. Sandy and I will then donate it to a library or a little local library or somebody along our travels. And love to have you participate in that program if you're interested. Arlene, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. This is a great conversation, and I think it was very valuable to the listeners today.
Thank you for having me. I really had a lovely time here today. Thank you.
Absolutely, you bet.